Welcome back. I'm Graham, and it's time for tea. And this time I wanted so much to talk to you about diligence. I love the word diligence. I was brought up in the hotel business, and when you looked after customers, I remember the head waiter said, "You must be diligent." What's diligent? It's like a boxing referee. He is in the ring and he watches between the two people who are punching each other so that they keep to the proper distance and behave themselves according to the rule. And he's watching this all the time. But at the same time, he moves around the people who are boxing, so that he does not get in the way of the audience and the judges. He's always on the move, always watching every movement. And then he said, that's the way I want you to serve. I want you to watch the people when they're having their meal, but don't interrupt them. Make sure that they have everything that they need. When they look as if they're hunting for something, may I help them? You see? That's what it's like, leaning forward and caring about them. So I got to thinking about diligence as being the same thing as to care. And so I just wanted to try and just chat with you about that combination, because, these days, this business of loving your neighbor as yourself, which I talked about yesterday, which I think is the most sensational thing that's happening in our world today. I think whole nations are beginning to think that way. The little nation of Albania the other day sent a whole team of its doctors and health workers to Italy to be able to help them with their crisis. And they had just begun to start to have the virus themselves, but they packed this team up and sent them off into the most exposed threat area on the planet at that stage. I think that is just fantastic. I'm sorry. It was a sensational thing. One of the smallest, most impoverished nations on earth sends its special people who are wanted potentially for their own sake off to be able to help someone else. Doesn't that sound right to you? I think so. Anyway, so the word diligence, and I don't want to come off like an expert now because I've looked it up and you can look it up as well. But it was about in the 17th century when there were some pretty good coaches with 4 horses pulling them, moving people around. A coach-drawn, horse-drawn coaches. And there was one in Paris called the Diligent, or Le Diligère. And it really meant that it would make haste, but it would also care for you as a passenger, and your freight would be cared for. And that's what they wanted to get the message out, and that was their brand name for their coach. And that's from the word diligere is where we get our English word diligence, to pay proper attention to something and care about getting a good outcome for the people that you care for. So I've looked at the word love, and last time I looked at it in terms of the word preoccupy. And I remember with my beloved Trina how preoccupied I was with her. And at other times not so much so, and how this could be interpreted as love or not love. So from a God point of view, we can be preoccupied with God at a time like this, which would seem to be reasonable, and pay attention in a caring way to one another. So I looked at the word C-A-R-E, and I love acronyms. I should have been in the government. So if you can imagine the word C-A-R-E now, the first letter C I think of as the word concern. And the dictionary describes the word concern as to have your mind filled with something. But in a sense, the word preoccupy, if you will, mind filled with something, concerned. I'm concerned about you, says that. And then A is altruism, that wonderful word which describes a selfish devotion to somebody else apart from oneself. That love neighbor as self thing, this is going on beyond self to loving that neighbor beyond one's own self as a focus. So altruism is a selfless devotion for the well-being of somebody else. And then R, I thought of the word restoration, to restore something. I remember I had an old MG car that was my first car. Gosh, it needed a lot of help. And so to rub that down and paint that little car was an amazing experience. I was trying to restore it to its original design intent. I didn't succeed. But at least I tried. So to return something to its original design intention, restoration. And then the letter E. And I thought of all kinds of things. And it came up with the idea of enthusiasm in the end. Something that I would care in an enthusiastic way. I thought that attitudinal thing of enthusiasm would be wonderful. And enthusiasm, I looked that up and I was really amazed where it comes from. It comes from the Greek word entheos, E-N and then T-H-E-O-S. Entheos means in God. And apparently the word enthusiasm came as a result of the Wesleyan movement in the Anglican Church in England. Got to behave as though God was really special and in them and everything else. And so they came up with, they called them the entheosts, running around thinking that God was in them. And it was really a disparaging kind of comment. You know, if you're going to love God, you've got to be quiet and peaceful and orderly. And this enthusiasm is not a good idea. So that's where it apparently comes from. So thought you might enjoy them. So look at the word care with me as a paragraph. To have my mind filled with a selfless devotion for the well-being of someone else apart from me, so that they may be restored to their original design intention in God, entheos. So that begs the question, what is the original design intention for us? I think to be well. I think we have this extraordinary system, including our immune system, which is just amazing. And when something like a virus enters into our body, the immune system pounces on it. And that is why some people are so lightly affected. I believe that original design intention of the immune system and the whole workings of the human body, properly maintained and properly cared for, will result in less of a difficult outcome. That's not 100%. And please, I am not sitting here as a scientist. I am sitting here as your neighbor in a way. And you and I are sharing tea and sharing ideas about what's going on at a time like this. So I'm just looking at the word care and looking at the word love and looking at the word preoccupation and looking about the scripture which has commanded me to love God and love my neighbor and love myself. I think I need to care about that deeply. So I'm trying to apply that care to my day-by-day life, and it's helping a bit. Until the next time, God bless you.